Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. And I'm going to read chapter 7 of the Spirit Flyer series, book number 1, The Magic Bicycle. The books are by John Bisbee. Beebe, B-I-B-E-E. Bibby, I never heard how to pronounce it, so oh well. John, what's his name? John Bybee. Should be the correct English if you use normal phonics. Okay, so John's been grounded about 3 times, 4 times, I don't know, losing track of that. So is he going to ever do anything good or do it right, or without wrecking his bike, his new bike, and wrecking his second new bike, his Spirit Flyer bike, and doing dumb things? Anyway, this chapter is titled The Offer of a Trade. Nothing makes sense anymore, John thought as he pushed the old red bike. He looked back, feeling like he was being watched. But each time he looked, he saw nothing unusual. Just the road, the weeds, and pieces of trash. Now, if you remember, he was mad. He went out riding and flying and getting kind of upset and not watching what he was doing, not realizing realizing that the bike was not working normal. And then he saw somebody on the road. It was Barry Smedlow, the president of the Cobras Club, or as he calls it, was the Dead Men's Club, Undertaker's Club. So he tries to dive bomb Barry, and that didn't work. The Spirit Flyer just shut down and stopped and lowered itself about 10 feet behind Barry. And then Barry turned around. And so John was mad, and Barry goes riding into town. And John rides back into town. And no, he has to walk the bike into town, I believe. Yeah, so. Okay, so here we go. Pieces of trash. The old bike seemed extra heavy because the day was hot. John was angry all over again at his uncle, at Barry, at Horace Grimsby, and especially at the Spirit Flyer. He felt as if the old red bike had betrayed him by not flying. At the same time, he felt he should be thankful to the Spirit Flyer because it saved him from the snake. John didn't know what to think. Nothing made sense. How could the snake bit the tire. Remember that? The snake was going to bite him, and the bike came in between him, and it bit the tire instead and flattened his back tire, so he's walking the bike into town. How could a bicycle fly? How could a skid mark turn into a snake? How could a tornado turn into a snake? And what about the time when the Spirit Flyer jumped out of the way of the lightning? Why did the bike stop flying and make him look like an idiot in front of Barry? John got angrier. Stupid bike, John muttered as he pushed. He looked back again. He thought he saw something move in the weeds. John stopped pushing and stared, searching for 2 red eyes or the black head of the snake. The snake scared John, but not just because it appeared from a skid mark. Though the skid mark snake didn't have the white circled X on its chest, it somehow seemed related to the snake in the dump and the tornado snake, and that's what scared John. It was bad enough to see a snake as big as a tornado or a snake made out of a skid mark, but something deeper scared him, as if he were trying to remember a bad dream and couldn't, a dream about the snakes. The feeling made him uneasy, as if he were being watched, even in his dreams. Besides his fear, he felt disappointed. The bike wouldn't work. I won't be flying in the finish on this old junk heap bike, John thought bitterly as he pushed the Spirit Flyer into the garage. John turned the bike upside down and began to work on the flat tire. He found a rag and wiped away the black sticky substance that the snake bite had left. Then he took off the wheel. Even though he was in a bad mood, he was careful as he removed the inner tube. He didn't have enough money to buy a new one. John pumped up the inner tube to find the holes. He figured there would be 2 from the snake's fang, but when he sank the tube into the tub of water, there were no bubbles. He checked everywhere. The tube was fine. John sighed at yet another puzzle and put the inner tube and tire back on after he inflated the tire to the correct air pressure. He rode the old bike out into the street for a test run. He only went a block before pushing down on the handlebars. As he expected, nothing happened. The Spirit Flyer continued to roll down the street like an ordinary bicycle. Okay, who's on? Zaps and Kaboom. You must be monitoring me. Nobody said anything. Okay, hi. Hi, bye, guys. So it was rolling along like an ordinary bicycle. Turn the page. Come on, 63, 64, there we go. This is about 9 pages like most of these chapters. Okay. He rode back home and parked in the garage. Why don't you fly? He shouted at the old red bike. What have I done? It's not my fault, you stupid bike. What have you got against me? The old bike leaned against the wall. John almost expected it to answer him. It would certainly do other magic things by itself. Once again, John felt a surge of anger. He walked over to the old bike and kicked the wheel, bending 3 spokes. At that instant, both tires made a shrill, hissing teapot noise and slowly went flat right before his eyes. I give up, John said. I wish I'd never found you. Even as he said the words, John knew he didn't really mean them, but angry people often say things they regret. John felt as if he should apologize, but that made him angry all over again. Why should I apologize to a bike? He thought. That's ridiculous. He stumped out of the garage, slamming the door behind him. John barely talked at supper that night. He thought his uncle would ask him about the fire at the McCradles farm, but his uncle was also unusually quiet. All John wanted was to finish his supper and go to his room, but his plans were interrupted when the doorbell rang. Uncle Bill answered the door. John heard another man's voice, someone vaguely familiar. Then Uncle John called John. Uncle Bill called John. He left the table and was greeted by the happy face of Horace Grimsby. The happy face, right? John, my boy, Grimsby said, how very nice to see you. How very nice. Hi, John mumbled, shaking Grimsby's limp hand. I can tell you how very sad I was today when your uncle and I made the difficult decision of disqualifying you for the safety contest. Sure, John said. I just bet you were sad, he thought. Therefore, in order to make up for your loss, I have a proposal for you, Grimsby grinned. Something I'm sure will excite you. What? One moment, please, Grimsby said. He went out the front door and returned, pushing a shiny new 10-speed bicycle into the room. The bike was metal flaked black with lots of chrome. The seat was red leather. Somehow it looked familiar. Then John realized it was exactly like Barry Smedlow's bike. On the front was a picture of a black cobra rearing up with its mouth open. On the middle bar in gold letters was the name Goliath Cobra. As an agent of Goliath Toys, I am authorized to give you this bike, Grimsby said. This is our newest and best model. Quite costly, actually, but you have something my boss would like. What's that? John asked. He couldn't think of anything he owned that was really valuable. Your old red bicycle, Grimsby said. The one you found at the dump. I believe its brand name is Spirit Flyer. Why would your boss want it? John asked. Grimsby frowned for a second, then smiled once more. Well, it so happens that my boss has an antique bicycle collection, and your bike, a Spirit Flyer, though not a really good specimen of the Spirit Flyer line, is nonetheless a Spirit Flyer, Grimsby said. They are somewhat rare, besides being old. Uncle Bill, who had been listening quietly, stared at Grimsby with more interest. Aunt Betty also looked puzzled. You've seen this type of bicycle before? Uncle Bill asked. Why, yes, of course, he said. Although they aren't too common, one sees them occasionally. John's cousins, Susan, Catherine, and Lois came into the room. When they saw the shiny new bicycle, they ran over to it, talking excitedly. What a pretty bike, Lois said. I don't know, Catherine replied. It almost seems mean. Look at that snake. It looks like it wants to bite you. Yeah, it does, sort of, Lois said. Both girls stepped back. Nonsense, Grimsby said, chuckling. Children say the darndest things. Yeah, especially if you're Art Linkletter, huh? Okay, so 64, 65, 66. And 67 is a picture of Grimsby. Funniest thing, sorry. Anyway, shall we take this out to the garage and get to the Spirit Flyer? And get the Spirit Flyer, I can carry it in my truck. How did you know I found it at the dump? John asked. Something about Grimsby made him suspicious, although John couldn't decide what it was. Oh, some child told me, I think, Grimsby said. One hears things, you know. John thought for a moment. Everyone in the room was staring at him. Since the Spirit Flyer had stopped flying, maybe I should just make a deal. Trade it, John thought. He was still mad at the old bicycle, but the idea of trading even for a new bicycle seemed impossible. No, I don't think so, John said. He was surprised to hear Aunt Betty sigh. When John looked at her, she had her hand over her mouth. Uncle Bill looked uneasy. Why were they acting so funny, John wondered. You mean you don't want to trade? Grimsby asked, as if he couldn't believe his ears. He looked angry for a moment, then smiled. This Goliath Cobra is worth 4 times the price of the Spirit Flyer. I can see you drive a hard bargain. Good business sense, boy. Say, to sweeten the deal, I will throw in a little money. I know my boss would like this bicycle. How does $1,000 sound to you? Plus the Goliath Cobra Deluxe. Everyone, including John, gasped as Grinsby took out his wallet and a fistful of bills. Here, he said, handing John the money, $1,000. And the Cobra Deluxe, Goliath Cobra Deluxe. Now shall we load up the Spirit Flyer? I need to be going. John stared at the money. It was the most money he had ever held in his hand. You can buy a lot of nice things with that much money, young man, Grinsby said. You could even have enough left over to buy some pretty nice presents for these lovely young ladies here, even your aunt and uncle. I'll show you the picture of Grinsby. Evil-looking little bastard, huh? Holding on a fistful of dollars. A fistful of hundreds. Doesn't have... They're dollars. That's stupid. He's had $1,000. Okay, next page. 66, 67, 68, and that's the last page. Okay, yay. Catherine and Lois jumped up and down and screamed in delight when they heard John might buy them a present. But Susan looked at John with fear in her eyes. We don't need presents, she said, firmly looking at Grinsby. Don't worry about us, John. Now, young lady, don't be so... No, John said suddenly. He gave the money back. I don't want to sell. Grinsby frowned for a long time, saying nothing. Very reluctantly, he put the money back in his wallet. Lois and Catherine looked sad. Susan smiled at John. Very well, I can still want to think it over, Grinsby said. No need to be hasty. If you want to change your mind, let me know. I will be around town. I bid you good folks a good night. Grinsby tipped his hat, then pushed the black bicycle out the door. No one said anything until they heard his truck drive away. You must be crazy, John, Catherine said. $1,000? That would be better than Christmas. Will you girls help clean up the kitchen, please? Mrs. Kramer asked. I get to dry, screamed Lois. Me too, said Catherine. Susan has to wash. Susan was quiet. She walked over to John and hugged him. John was surprised. She ran out of the room without saying a word. Will you sit down, John? Uncle Bill asked. His voice was serious. He looked at his watch and then again at Betty. And then at Betty. John sat down. For some reason he felt relieved, as if a great weight had been lifted off his shoulders. But everything changed when he heard his uncle's next words. Lucy McCready is coming over here in just a few minutes, he said. Uncle Bill said, I went out to her farm today. She wants to thank you. Busted. Okay, I'm not going to read it because my voice is gone. Scratchy. I'll read it myself, though. That way I'll be prepped up. I want to find out what happens. All right, good night. Ooh, 4 people, actually. Wow. Miracles happen, huh? All right. Any questions? I'm going to do some more off-grid cooking. I did a rice curry. It was awesome. I still have some. What I did was I took it from the Aircore walk-away cooker and put it into the Instant Pot, so I just have it on keep warm. I punch the button, keep warm, and it just keeps it warm. Sometimes it shuts up, but it doesn't not that long, between tonight and tomorrow morning. Not that big of a deal. I just turn it back on, warm it up, because about the time it's cooled down, it'll warm back up. So I love doing that. It's a good way to keep it. Okay, I'm going to X out. Good night. Oh, let me see if who's on. Story time? Yeah, it's story time. Where you been? I'm on chapter 7. You missed a few chapters there, Ray. Sarge, hey Sarge, how you doing? What happened? That's it. Ray, Sarge, and Ray. Okay. Well, I'm done reading. My voice is going, so good night. Unless you want to ask something, I'll try to get that address or something to you. Somebody did a video recently. It was a video of his. I don't remember the name of it though. Of Travis, and it had his email on there, and if I could remember what it was, I'll try to find it right now. Okay. Good night. Possibly.